Bringing up to the stage somebody who, aside from these impressive numbers that you have in front of you, expanded to over 120 locations in 24 months. 24 months ago, those numbers were at 0, by the way. Okay, just to wrap your mind around that. Mom to an amazing little girl, and also somebody that mentors young entrepreneurs. A really amazing business leader, someone I'm excited to bring to the stage. You've likely seen her, possibly online, running some really, really highly reviewed online events very recently. Here she is, live with us. This is Nikki Miller.
Hi. I gotta get the bad news out early, and I have to disappoint you early in this talk. So Dan calls me a couple months ago, and he says, I gotta talk to you about something, which is never a good way to start a phone call. And he said, you're either gonna be really mad or you're gonna think it's really funny. And I was like, Daniel, one too many of our phone calls start this way. And he says, well, when we were sending out the marketing for the event, we said, as the headline, come learn from amazing speakers, John Cheplack, Nikki Miller, a former bank robber who went on to build $1 billion business. And he says, a bunch of people were calling me because they had no idea that you had robbed a bank. And I said, and I was quiet on the other line, and he said, you're mad. And I said, I am mad, but not for the reason that you think. I'm mad because I'm walking onto that stage, and the people who don't know who I am or who do know who I am and think that I did that are going to think I'm really cool and badass, and I've got to be the one to tell them that it's not me, that I didn't do that. And you guys are going to get to hear from Robert tomorrow. He's an amazing human being. I had the privilege of having lunch with him and his wife and his business partner today, and it's an incredible story. Sadly, not mine. I'm not that cool. I didn't do that. What I did do is build a first-of-its-kind leverage platform exclusively designed for individual real estate agents. Started that company a little over 2 years ago, and like Dan said, in the span of 24 months, we've expanded to over 120 locations nationwide. In our second year in business, we did 112 million in volume, and this year we're tracking to a little over 350 million in volume. So I did that. That's something, right? I know it's a courtesy clap. Thanks so much. I'll be honest, normally when I do these things, I get asked to talk about scale or negotiations or leadership, something of that nature, something business-oriented. And I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, and I honestly had something entirely different planned, and then took a sharp left turn because I thought to myself, there's going to be no shortage of tactical advice in this room. Would we agree? You guys have heard from some of the most impressive business owners and operators that I've had the privilege to know, and you're going to go home with no shortage of tactical advice to implement in your business right away. And if you're anything like me, I'm constantly looking for a better strategy. I want to know how to get to where I want to go as fast as possible, but it's my experience in coaching people that the extent to which someone is willing to implement a strategy is directly tied to how much they believe in their ability to achieve the goal. And so what I'm really telling you is exactly what we just talked about, which is that it all lives up here, right? Ultimately, we get to decide whether we're willing to implement the strategy, and more often than not, our ability to achieve it isn't our lack of strategy. It's our lack of belief that we're worthy of whatever that goal is. Here's how I know. I had a really pivotal moment with my coach a couple weeks ago. I called him, and normally we start with the pleasantries, right? He's like, how you doing? And I say, I'm fine, because I'm not there to talk about my feelings because I pay him out the nose for these coaching sessions, so I just need to get into strategy, right? I'm there to learn something. And or to talk through something. And he said, how you doing? And I said, and this week was a little bit different. I happened to get the proverbial business punch to the face. And I said, I'm not good. Business is not perfect. How many other people's businesses in this room are not perfect right now? Awesome, I'm in the right room. I said, business is not perfect, and frankly, I've got a bone to pick with you. I thought that when we got to this, my dream when I was building a big business was that one day we would get to this upper echelon of business, and the gates gates would open and somebody would pat you on the back and they'd be like, good job, you fought really hard, and now it's easy. Like, you don't have to deal with the bullshit anymore. You passed the test, and now it's going to be easy, and you don't have to do the day-to-day dregs anymore. You just get to go to the promised land, and no more limiting beliefs. It's not going to be hard for you anymore. Everything from here is smooth sailing. And I said, and I'm here to tell you that it's not that. Business is harder than it's ever been for me, and frankly, most days I feel like I'm trying to steer a cruise ship with a baseball bat. So no, coach, I'm not fine. And he said, are you finished? And I said, I'm not actually. And this is when the salesperson in me really came out. And I started to really sell why this year I was not going to be able to achieve all of the things that I had laid out to achieve, all of the things that I had told him at the beginning of the year that I wanted to do, all of the things that I promised myself and the people in my world that I wanted to achieve. And I was just selling why I couldn't do it. And he said, are you finished? I said, yes, now I'm done. And so we just sat there and stared at each other for a minute. And I said, are you gonna say something? Yell at me or motivate me? Do your coach thing. And he said, I'm waiting for you to decide. And I was like, decide what? He said, I'm waiting for you to decide to finally let the lion out of the cage. And then he hung up. And I had 3 thoughts. 1, what an asshole. 2, I don't know what that means. And 3, this was 10 minutes into our coaching call, and I was fairly certain I was not going to be reimbursed for the latter 20 minutes. And then I went forth with my week, because I still don't know what that means. And I was left to do nothing except for wallow in my own self-pity. So I took my daughter to the zoo, because that seemed like a logical thing to do when I was in this place in my business. So I took my 2.5-year-old to the zoo. And I love lions, so I thought he was kind of making fun of me, but I do really love lions. If you know me, I've got lots of lion paraphernalia in my world. And so I dragged my 2.5-year-old. We were there for her, but we went to the lion exhibit. And I'm watching the lions, and we're there, and the person that works at the zoo is giving us an explanation about all things lion, right? So he's telling us some statistics, and he's giving us some information. And he's telling us that when lions are in captivity, they'll sleep from anywhere from 20 to 22 hours a day. And now I'm understanding why this is my spirit animal, because that's a sleep schedule I can get on board with, because I got a toddler. And he said, but of course, when they're out in the wild, they don't do that. They wouldn't be able to sleep that frequently. And people started to clear out after he was done with his spiel, and I stayed there for a minute just watching these sleeping lions. And at one point, one of the lions got up, and she started walking towards the cage, and I saw all of her muscles ripple, and I was just watching this predator move around. And at some point, she walked to the other edge of the cage, and we locked eyes. And I thought to myself, I wonder if she ever wonders what it's like to run wild. I wonder if she ever looks around and thinks to herself, what am I doing in this cage? I'm a goddamn lion. And then I pictured it, a lion running wild. She stalks her prey, attacking and killing at will, and then goes in search of her next conquest. That's what her lion instincts tell her to do. And she's not being bad, and we don't judge her, and we're not mad about it, because she's just being a lion. Now lock her up in a cage. She'll lie there all day, quiet, lethargic, and well-fed. What happened to those lion instincts? They're still there, deep inside, waiting to be uncaged. And if you put her out in the wild, she'll go lion again, preying and attacking. Put her back in the cage, and she'll lie down. See, I think people are a lot like the lion in the cage. Tame, docile, waiting for something to happen in their lives. But our cage isn't made of bars and glass. Our cage is made of bad advice, low self-esteem, limiting beliefs, rules, and torturous thinking about what we are and are not capable of. It's molded around us by a lifetime of overthinking, overanalyzing, and worry about what might go wrong. And if you stay in the cage long enough, you'll forget your basic instincts. You'll forget that you're a fucking lion. And so when I was thinking about what we could talk about today, I called my coach immediately and I said, I got it. I got it. See, I've coached thousands of agents, thousands of business owners in my career, and I've come to understand one basic principle. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. And it's not what you're capable of that holds you back. It's what you believe to be impossible simply because you haven't seen it done before. What do you believe to be impossible simply because you haven't seen it done before? If we only consult reality for what's possible, our world will never change. Right is not real, and should is a cage. And if you stay in the cage long enough, you'll forget that you were born to run wild. So when I was thinking about what I could bring you today, of course, I wanted to make it something valuable. And I knew, like I said, you would get no shortage of tactical information. So I thought about what I might need. And I thought to myself, well, a good coach, a good leader, will open the door and get him out of the cage. But a great coach, a great leader, will teach them that they never belonged in there in the first place. And will teach them how to get out themselves. So that's what I'm going to do with you today. I'm going to teach you how to get out of the fucking cage. Yeah. Sound good? All right, so we're going to go through this pretty fast because I only have so much time, and because I don't want you to overthink it. We're going to get into instinct, into what you already know, because here's what I want you to walk out of this today with. Number one, this is just my self-talk. This is what I use for myself when I'm feeling stuck, a series of questions that I walk myself through when I'm in my head and I know I need to get out of the cage and into action. That's what we're going to walk through today. So I want you to actually answer these. Don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Don't worry about what might go wrong. Just get into action. I just need you to answer the question. I just need you to get back to instinct. Oh, God. Which button? Green, right. Yep. Listen, guys, I can get out of the cage, but I can't work this stupid thing. All right. My favorite question in business. What action am I avoiding? What action am I avoiding by making this more complicated than it actually is? What action am I avoiding by making this more complicated than it actually is? Listen, guys, I'm a real estate agent too, and I can overcomplicate the shit out of business. But success is actually pretty simple. Is that fair? Like, what you need to go and do today to fix your shit is actually really simple. So go do it. The reason that we overcomplicate it is because we don't want to move on it. It's my experience that most of us will overcomplicate things. We take what's very simple and make it very complicated, and then we stop trusting ourselves, stop trusting our ability to make decisions, stop trusting our instincts. And here's what I've learned. The closer you get to the truth, the more simple things are. The further you get away from the truth, the more complicated they are. You've ever heard someone who doesn't know what they're talking about explain something that they think they know what they're talking about? They use a lot of words, huh? And it's because they don't have a clue. But if you really know, if you really understand it, it's pretty simple. How many of you could clearly understand what Barry Habib was saying about the market? Want to know why? Because he knows what he's talking about. How many of us could explain it the same way he did? The information isn't any different. It's how deeply he understands it. So what action are you avoiding by making this more complicated than it actually is? And by the way, I want you guys to hear as we go through this, there's no energy around this. No judgment. This is just to get you out of the cage. Frankly, self-judgment is just not a productive path forward, so just stop that. This is just to get you out of the cage. What am I resisting because it's hard or uncomfortable that will ultimately cost me in the future? What am I resisting because it's hard or uncomfortable that will ultimately cost me in the future? Listen, guys, I tell my team all the time, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. You can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. What are you resisting because it's hard or uncomfortable that's ultimately going to cost you in the future? Here's what I know. On the other side of whatever is hard or uncomfortable is usually whatever it is that we're looking for. And by the way, the good news is you get to decide, and the bad news is you get to decide. You get to make a decision about whether or not you want to deal with that hard thing today or whether you want to deal with it 10 years from now when it's a complete monster. You could work out and eat healthy today, or you could wait until you're 100 pounds overweight and do it then. Your decision. Good news is you get to decide. Bad news is you get to decide, but either way, it's going to be hard, right? What is one activity that I know if I did it consistently, I'm certain it would transform my personal and or business life? What is one activity that if I did it consistently, I'm certain would transform my personal and or business life? We heard this from James Clear earlier, right? This is just about habit building. What's that activity or that habit that you need to build? We'll specify habits later. But ultimately, what's the activity that you need to do that's going to absolutely transform your personal or business life? What have you been putting off that's creating compound interest in your business and in your life? By the way, you'll never be closer to getting that thing done than you are today, so shouldn't you just do it now? What is the one activity that I know if I did it consistently, I'm certain would transform my business or personal life? What do I know to be true that I haven't mustered up the courage to admit? What do I know to be true that I haven't mustered up the courage to admit? Here's what I know. In our businesses and our lives, we often look at feedback for people who are also lying to themselves. And I don't have a problem with you lying to yourself. I just have a problem when you start to believe it. This is why coaches are so important. Right? They hold up a big mirror and says, I don't believe your bullshit. You can lie to yourself, but you cannot lie to me. So what do I know to be true that I quite simply just haven't mustered up the courage to admit? Listen, guys, brilliant thinking is rare, but courage is in shorter supply than genius. I don't need more brilliant thinkers in my organization. We've got a lot of those. What I need is people who have the courage to show up when it's hard, to get their mind right when they know they're out of sorts, and to break out of the fucking cage when they know they've been sitting in there for too long. That's what I need. I don't need more brilliance. I need more courage. By the way, so do you. So do you. And on the other side of that is probably your promised land, whatever that is for you. Where has my personal growth put a ceiling on my business and success? Where has my personal growth put a ceiling on my business and success? You guys have heard the very overused adage that your business grows to the extent that you do. It's true, by the way. But here's what I also know. Every business is built in the founder's image. Every one. Every business is built in the founder's image, and we don't get to have great strengths without great weaknesses. So you need to identify your own gap and fill it with people, the right people, by the way. Because here's the challenge of hiring. You know who I like? People who are just like me. You know who my organization doesn't need more of? Me. So we have to understand, where are my gaps? Where have I found a gap in my own personal growth? And then I either hire and or grow so that my business isn't capped by my unwillingness to fix my shit. Yes? So where has my personal growth put a ceiling on my business and on my success? I want you to write that one down. Is it that you don't understand your finances? By the way, this is probably the top one when I'm talking to a business owner. They literally don't understand the numbers. You want to know why they don't understand the numbers? Because they've been hiding from them for so long, and they've made this big story about how challenging the numbers are and how difficult they are to understand. But here's what I know. The path is in the math. The math is the easiest part of real estate. You've just been resisting it for so long that you don't realize how easy it actually is. So if you would just go learn about it, if you would spend time in the numbers, I assure you, your business will soar. And by the way, it's much easier than you think it is. What would I do even if I knew I was going to fail? What would I do even if I knew I was going to fail? When I came up with the idea for my company, I called a lot of my friends who run huge real estate businesses, by the way, mentors of mine who are some of the top names in real estate in the country that I'm privileged to be in relationship with. And I said, hey, I see a gap. Like, I got this crazy idea. I want to build what I wish I had as a growing agent. I want to build all the economies of scale, all the support, all the infrastructure of a team, but I'm going to allow the agent to keep and maintain their own brand. And by the way, I don't want to work with teams because that's a bunch of garbage. I just want to work with individual agents. That's all I want to do. And every single one of them was like, you're a lunatic, and this is going to fail. And I was like, it might. It might. It might actually fail. And by the way, guys, I'm 2 years in, and sure, we're doing great, and I'm probably going to look like I'm 50 by the time I'm done with it in the next couple of years. But if I think about it, if I think about what I'm building, about everything I'm learning, about the privilege I've had in meeting the people I have, if you told me for sure it was going to implode and that I was going to fail, I'd still do it. I'd still do it. Because here's my theory about success and failure anyway. Failure is a funny thing because it has a whole lot to do with when you time the outcome, doesn't it? Failure is a weird concept to me because I think it has so much to do with when you actually time the outcome of when you're judging it. Here's my theory. If you looked at Michael Jordan the first day he picked up a basketball, you might look at him and say, the dude's a failure, right? He's got no idea how to dribble that thing. If you looked at him when he didn't make the team as a sophomore in high school, you might call him a failure. And I think if you looked at him when he won his 6th NBA championship, that we would probably agree he's a success. So maybe, from my perspective at least, you can't really fail at all. The only way to really fail in my world, in my head, dramatic effect, the only way to really fail is to never try at all, to never really find out what you're capable of, or to quit. Otherwise, you're not failing. You're just in the middle of succeeding. Guys, you're in the middle of succeeding. I know the market's tough. For me too. I know business is a challenge. And I know some days you think everybody but you has it figured out, and I'm here to tell you, we don't. We absolutely don't. We'll make it sound really good, but we don't. We're all making this up as we go. So you're not failing. You're just in the middle of succeeding. And what would I do if I knew success was guaranteed? What would I do if I knew success was guaranteed? So often we don't start something because of the time it's going to take to get there. But you'll never be closer than you are now. What would you be doing if you knew for sure that you were going to succeed? Were you so in your head about failure? God forbid we fail. Where are you so in your head about failure that you won't even try? But if I said, it'll be a success, just do it, would you say, yes, I'm in? And remember that there's really only one way to fail, to never really find out what you're capable of. And otherwise, you're just in the middle of succeeding. What habit, if formed or unformed, would drastically change my life? What habit, if I formed it or unformed it, would drastically change my life? For me, this is waking up early. And by the way, guys, a lot of people think that I wake up and like drink gasoline and I'm on fire the minute I wake up. But I don't. I've got a toddler who's a goddamn monster. Yeah. And is not sleeping. And frankly, I'm not a morning person. Whenever someone's like, hey, can we meet at 6 a.m. before the conference starts? I'm like, fuck you. No. No, we cannot. Thank you to everyone who's still my friend after they saw me in the gym this morning and I was growling at them. I'm not a morning person. I don't like it. But I had a coach ask me a long time ago, what's the one habit that if you formed it or unformed it would drastically change your life? And I said, I need to get out of bed. Like, I got to get out of bed earlier. And so make no mistake, guys, I didn't do the thing, because you got to know thyself when you want to build something great, where I said, you know what, I'm going to start. I was waking up at like 7 tops at best, right? Scrolling social media, answering emails for a while in bed before I finally crawled out. It's a little different these days. But I said, I just got to get out of bed earlier. And so he said, what's the smallest habit you could make? And I said, I literally just need to get out of bed. I can't hold myself accountable to waking up, but I promise you I will get out of bed at 5. And my only rule is that I can't get back into the bed. So make no mistake, I slept on the floor, slept on the couch, slept on my favorite little reading chair, slept in my car at one point. It was an all-time low. It's okay. But eventually I stayed awake. Eventually I got up at 5 and I stayed up at 5. And slowly I started to build on that habit until eventually, begrudgingly, I became a morning person. These habits don't have to be drastic, just like James Clear talked about earlier today. And you're setting yourself up to fail if you make them too big, so make it small. What's a habit that if you formed it or unformed it? Maybe your habit right now is that every day that you get home, you take a drink. 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 3, and 3 leads to a headache. I'm on the wrong side of my 30s now, I know. Right? What habit, if you formed it or unformed it, would drastically change my life? And by the way, the wrong side of my 30s is the fact that I'm in my 30s at all. I know, don't judge me. Why am I uniquely suited to achieve the goals and dreams I have? Here's what I know. Dreams aren't bestowed upon us unless we have the DNA to achieve them. Dreams are not bestowed upon us unless you have the DNA to achieve it. You would not be called to run wild unless you were a lion. Where are you uniquely suited to achieve the dreams and goals that you have? What special skills do you have? What secret talents? In what way are you a killer that nobody else is? You have them. I don't know what they are for you, but something lives in you. And the sooner you can recognize that, the sooner you can get out of your head and into your instincts and start being who you were born to be. In what way do I know the world is conspiring for my success? In what way do I know that the world is conspiring for my success? If we can't dictate our dreams, then the world cannot support us in order to achieve them. And I know for sure that even the hardest things that have happened in my life were conspiring for my success. Is that true for you guys too? I needed them because I would not have become the person I'm proud to be had I not had them. I would not have become the person I was born to be if I hadn't had them. And based on these answers, what do you need to take action on today? Based on these answers, what do you need to take action on today? Guys, the most overlooked and underappreciated success strategy is doing it. Invariably at these events, somebody will stop me in the hallway and ask me that very thing. They'll be like, hey, nobody's around. Can you just give me the secret? Like, no, I won't tell anybody, I promise. Just give me the secret. And I'll say, yeah, have you considered doing the work? Because that's it. We don't need to have a perfect path forward. We find the right path forward by implementing imperfect plans. You can't know the perfect plan until you move. You have to take action. Today, tomorrow, or better yet, right now. It's time to unleash, guys. To run wild. And if you've been waiting for the perfect time or permission to go after your dreams, this is it. Consider this it. If you've been waiting for that defining moment, consider this it, because there's never going to be a perfect time to be who you were born to be. So shouldn't you just start now? Your dream life will never be closer than it is today. So shouldn't you just take action now? The time's going to pass either way. You might as well spend it in pursuit of something more. At some point, we have to embrace the uncomfortable, the uncertainty, because it's the only path forward. Action is the only path forward. And it's not magic, it's not luck, it's not circumstance. It's developing a great plan and then executing that plan day in and day out with grit and tenacity and passion until the visions in your head become your reality. So let's stop hoping for a challenge-free life. And let's start hoping that the challenges come our way give us the strength to transform into who we were born to be. A big life, your dream life, never promised to be an easy one. It never promised to be an easy one, so we need to give up the lie that it's supposed to be. Just give up the lie that it's supposed to be. Listen, guys, I don't know what's hidden inside of you. I don't know your aspirations, your secret talents, your longings. I have no way of knowing that. But I know something amazing lives in you. I know a lion lives in you. Something miraculous lives in you, and bringing that to life is going to take work and faith and focus and courage and hours of devotion. And the clock is ticking, and the world is spinning, and you simply don't have time anymore to think small. Success is not going to interrupt you. Your dream life is not going to interrupt you. You will have to go find it, build it, craft it, create it. It's your life, by the way. You were born enabled to greatness. Success is your birthright. Everything you want is yours. And everything you need already lives in you. So make a decision about who you want to be in this world. And as a result of becoming that person, what you might also achieve. Decide now, because life is short and rare and amazing and miraculous. So be daring with what you believe is possible. And be audacious with your vision for your life. I want to thank you guys for coming along with me on this journey. This is really just my self-talk. The coaching session I give myself when I need to get out of the cage. And above all, I want you guys to remember this. You were born to run wild. And it will be your decision, and your decision alone, whether or not you choose to remain caged by this world or to take your rightful place as a creator of it. The good news is you get to decide, and the bad news is you get to decide. I hope you'll finally decide to let the lion out of the cage. I want to thank you guys so much for having me. It was a privilege to be here. Thank you guys.